All right, hello everybody. Today we're going to focus on a Serena build. This build is just going to be for mobbing, basic mobbing, and avoid erosions. You can use it in any of the 1 through 10, or even in the 5 challenge levels. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We're just going to focus on one build today. I know Serena has many different builds for many different situations, but this is the one. This is one of the builds I use for most situations that aren't colossi and things like that. But this is a build for mobbing and void erosion. All right, we'll start off with the modules. Okay, first off, we're going with the him one simply because of the boost, the buff to yourself and allies, and that actually works into part of her damage output. Anyways, mid-air maneuvering, but that's something I also use. Skill extension is for the duration of her fourth ability buff that gives her all that damage output for her guns. Duration, more and more duration, obviously. Expansion for the range on her third ability when she puts out that ring, so it buffs more of your teammates. And now you want a bunch of HP, so HP amplification and increased HP are here. You've got your cooldown mods, Nimble Fingers, MP conversion, and things like maximize conservation, because you want to have your skill cost down because you want to stay in the air as much as possible. MP collector, because you're going to use a lot of MP, you're going to be dashing in the air, you're going to be using your abilities, or your 3 and 4 more than anything else, so you're gonna want to make sure you don't run out of MP. Now, multi-talented, that literally helps you out because your fourth ability and your third ability are dimension. As you can see here, dimension. So as you're using dimension abilities, it gives you an extra 20.5% cooldown. So that makes it to where it's just, you have your fourth ability buff on just long enough to where you can cast it again, as long as you're, consistently killing and casting and things like that. So that's the build. That's just for void erosions, mobbing, 400%, whatever. And it does extremely well. You will kill everything immediately. All right, next we're going to go for the reactor. She doesn't base her damage. This is a gun build, so the reactor itself doesn't matter. Whether it's fire, ice, toxic, non-attribute, doesn't matter. But the two roles that matter are the skill duration up and the cooldown. That's the two roles you want on it, regardless. It doesn't matter what the reactor is, just those two roles. All right, we went ahead with a 2-piece ascending armory, specifically for that skill cost. Once again, the less MP it costs, the longer you can stay in the air. Same thing on the shell crusher. It's a 2-piece shell crusher. We're using it for the 5% extra 5% fire rate. Okay, and now here's where it gets a little bit complicated, a lot of work to do. So the main gun I use, simply because I'm not a fan of using the rocket launcher with her. I just like to be shooting and killing things as quickly as possible. I'm pretty simplistic with it. I'm not one of those speed runners that goes through and has to get every second out. I just like to kill, help people out, get as much damage as possible. So I stick to using Last Daggers with her. Now, here's the thing. I have 4 Last Daggers, every one of them with a different element. One with toxic, one with fire, one with chill, one with electric. Okay? And obviously in the void erosions, there's no enemies that are weak to fire, so it's only, you have to make sure they're weak to toxic, weak to, there's 3 different ones. One's weak to toxic, one's weak to electric, one's weak to ice. So those 3, all three of those guns that I have, the cores I put, the very top one was the specific element. Like this particular one has toxic on it, 2 firearm attacks, and she's not glaze, so she doesn't have unlimited ammo. So instead of putting fire rate, I put 2 rounds per magazine rolls. Now, if you look right here on the base rolls, where it says I've got more toxic attack, firearm attack, the critical hit damage. But that bonus attack against the Legion of Immortality is specific to the ones that are weak to toxic. So I've got that. So this particular gun is built all the way around for killing the toxic weak enemies in the void erosions and it does just maximize damage. Now, if you look, same thing. Every one of these guns that they've all got chill, or they've all got two basically with a core and the regular roll. They've got two of the elements, and firearm attack, crit damage, and then the specific faction: Legion of Darkness, Legion of Immortality, or Order of Truth. They've all got rounds per magazine instead of fire rate. Now, this gun, I've got it set for something else, but that's on a different video. Anyways, also, I've got a specific build for the guns that is for Void Erosion. So if you really want maximum damage, you swap them out depending on which faction you're fighting against. Now, the gun itself, you got your basic action reaction, rifling reinforcement, your better concentration priority, fire rate up. Those are your damage. Those are your, hey, I'm going to kill things with it. Now, we're focusing a little bit more on multi-hit. So we got multi-trigger and multi-piercing trigger for the multi-hit chance and the multi-hit damage. Okay. Firing Fiesta, you're not using Glay, so you need to have as many bullets, as much time to shoot them as possible. Now on Last Dagger, I've got it catalyzed quite a bit, but on these last two sides right here, every time, like for example, if you're going into a Legion of Immortality group, you want a toxic gun, with the toxic rolls and things like that on it. But it also helps if you put two more modules that give you more damage toward toxic attack. So I've got toxic enhancement and poison priority on this, but I've also got it rolled to where I can put, the chill or the electric or fire, whichever one of the elements I want to put on there, so I can just swap them out depending on which level I'm going into. That lets you do the maximum amount of damage on erosions. All right, so we're going to go to the inversion reinforcement. Okay, right here, you're trying to stay in the air. You get that multi-hit chance, trying to get multi-hit as much as possible. You want to hit the gold bars, because whenever you hit them in the head with a weak point damage, it hits everything around them. And then right here, depending on which gun you're using and which level you're facing, you want to switch your focus rounds to either, toxic, chill, or electric, depending on which one you're going to give you even more damage to that. And then right here, I use strike point application for that extra weak point damage. So especially when you're at the boss at the end of the levels, you keep that reticle right on their head and they go down fast, as you guys probably saw in the video of me playing Void Erosion. All right, now we're going to check out the Arche tuning. Specifically, like I said, for VEP, mobbing, things like that. This is where I went, got the multi-hit chance, multi-hit damage, a little bit extra health. Went up here, all these damage modifiers, as much firearm attack as I could get, critical hit rate, critical hit damage. Went up here, now we got defense neutralization as the mutant cell. And as you can see, it works for any of the four elements. Not only does it drop defense by 50%, it drops any of their attributes. Like if, say, for example, you're using a chill dagger. Well, as you're doing this, you are dropping their chill resistance by 30%, which means they're taking even more damage. So that's why I've decided to go with this here. Like I said, I'm not a speed runner. I'm not like top of the line. I'm not going to, outdo anyone, but this build will get you some really high damage. It'll do it fairly quickly. You'll be able to help out your friends. You'll be able to, the build's pretty easy to use. As you guys saw, you try to stay in the air, you recast your 4 whenever it's ready. And yeah, well, that is it. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and have a good day.